Anthony Fauci thought this would stay buried.
Of all the quotes of Anthony Fauci, probably the one you played where he said there were no red flags is probably the one that gets my blood boiling the most.
After a Senate committee obtained Fauci's government phone, some of the text messages revealed potentially damning information, and Ron Johnson followed it up with a bold promise to the public.
I can't tell you what we're going to find, but we're going to scour that phone for any piece of evidence.
And today, we're breaking it all down. So let's jump right into it.
Dr. Anthony Fauci at the height of the pandemic telling the public in February and August of 2021 that it was safe for pregnant women to get the COVID vaccine. Text messages released from Fauci's phone from around that same time show him privately raising concerns about the vaccine's effect on pregnant women. Fauci telling then CDC Director Rochelle Walensky and Surgeon General Vivek Murthy, quote, since many people have significant cytokine storm and fever after the second dose, this theoretically could be associated with miscarriage in the first trimester. Senator, you and Senator Rand Paul, you released these text messages. So what more can you share now on your investigation into Dr. Anthony Fauci and where we go from here?
Good morning, Cheryl. Of all the quotes of Anthony Fauci, probably the one you played where he said there were no red flags is probably the one that gets my blood boiling the most. VAERS was being deluged with the reports of adverse events. And what his responsibility should have been is to warn doctors, practitioners, and the American public.
We'll get into how Senators Johnson and Paul are getting their hands on this information in a bit. But first, let's just focus on the texts themselves. The one Cheryl read was a part of a larger exchange between Fauci, CDC Director Rochelle Walensky, and Surgeon General Vivek Murthy. After that particular message, Murthy wrote, Tony, Rochelle, did you see this announcement today from WHO, the World Health Organization, saying they advise against pregnant women taking the Moderna vaccine because of lack of data? I imagine we will all get asked about this, to which Fauci responded, I would say that in any vaccine in which data are lacking in pregnant women, one must weigh the potential risks against the benefits. So behind the scenes, they were clearly still working through the available information. Although their public stance, do we all remember how assertive that was?
You've sent this criminal referral for Fauci to the DOJ. And Rand Paul argues that Fauci pleaded the Fifth 111 times in a Senate hearing weeks ago, that's contempt of Congress. You voted in favor of holding Dr. Fauci in contempt. Senator Paul was on with Maria, and I think this is important. I want you to listen to what he told her about the destruction of records.
What we've discovered is that Anthony Fauci was destroying federal records and was encouraging other people to destroy federal records. That is a crime. He testified to the House a year ago and said he wasn't doing that. That's a crime, to perjure himself. And so we will bring him back. I've asked him to come and testify this fall. If he doesn't come voluntarily, we will subpoena him. The question is he immune because of the pardon? I think that needs to be challenged in court.
Fauci's legal standing and cases might be the most problematic yet. Last year, the House Oversight Committee released its AutoPen report arguing executive actions performed by Biden White House staff and signed by AutoPen are null and void. So the obvious question is, what happens if a court is asked to decide whether the same argument applies to Fauci's blanket pardon? Plus, his own emails show him telling other government employees to delete emails after reading them. And if that wasn't enough, one of his former senior advisors is facing federal charges for destruction, alteration, or falsification of records in federal investigations, concealment, removal, or mutilation of records. Now for the juicy part, because you're probably wondering how Johnson and Paul got their hands on all this information in the first place. And it's all thanks to having the right person in the right position.
Was the pardon actually the AutoPen? Can that be challenged? And do you think that the DOJ will charge him?
We'll see what they'll charge him on contempt of Congress. Other state, Florida's AG is looking at this. Tommy Tuberville becomes the governor of Alabama. He certainly wants to look into charges. But again, I don't mind focusing on Fauci because now the news media is actually covering some of this stuff. But, for example, Tom Shimbakuro, he was the head of safety surveillance for CDC. He destroyed federal records. He deleted emails, unfortunately, at the guidance of the general counsel of HHS. But they not only deleted them on his devices, they deleted them apparently from the HHS server. Okay, so no, we're starting to find evidence of all kinds of record destruction. Those should be federal law violations. I've been writing oversight letters all through the Biden administration. We never got squat out of them. Thankfully, Bobby Kennedy has forced HHS, from my standpoint, against resistance within his agencies to start giving us these documents. We only got the phone last week. That's subject to our subpoena over a year ago.
Bobby's role in all of this rarely gets talked about, but when it comes to Fauci's diaries, he revealed just how difficult they were to uncover, saying it took us about 8 months to dig these out of 11 separate servers where they had been sequestered and secreted. Now, imagine if this involved an official from the Biden or Obama administration. Chances are, those records would have been buried somewhere nobody would ever think to look. The text messages were a little more straightforward. HHS simply handed over a copy of Fauci's government phone records containing more than 34,000 messages and 552 voicemails. And with that much material to go through, who knows what else could be sitting out there? Ron Johnson then made one pretty bold promise about it.
I can tell you that what we have looked at, it predates the pandemic, so that's good. The way we're going to use it, obviously, is we'll compare key moments, see who he was texting. We'll compare what we see on the phone to other FOIA requests where he provided text. Did he provide all the texts? Because we know, obviously, his henchman, David Morans, had a FOIA lady showed him how to delete emails or remove them. And so it might be a treasure trove. I think the diaries certainly were.
Right now, going back to the phone, if he's deleted texts, will you find those?
We'll have to do a forensic analysis. Okay, I can't tell you what we're going to find, but we're going to scour that phone for any piece of evidence. Plus, we got 11 million pages from HHS because of Bobby Kennedy's commitment to radical transparency. We've gotten other documents. And so what you need for all these investigations, that you need a bunch of documents to compare it to testimony. I've invited him to come in for a transcribed interview, which he refused. I will subpoena him for that transcribed interview.
At the end of the day, this should be bigger than Fauci, COVID, or whichever party happens to control Washington. The real problem is what happens the next time America faces a serious public health emergency. Millions of people came out of the pandemic with far less trust in government agencies and the experts speaking on their behalf. You can't repair that by telling everyone to forget what happened and move on. The only way forward is to put everything on the table, figure out where officials went wrong, and hold people accountable when necessary. Because the next outbreak could be even more dangerous. And if half the country immediately tunes out every warning, we're going to have an entirely different crisis on our hands. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on this story. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And remember, keep thinking.